What if the glass of soda you had with lunch today, the bread you toasted this morning, or even the healthy-looking yogurt sitting in your refrigerator right now were quietly stealing calcium right out of your bones? Not over decades, not slowly, but actively, meal after meal, day after day. And what if nobody ever told you? Not your doctor during your last visit, not the label on the package. Nobody. If you're over 65, this is not a scare tactic. This is something that affects millions of Americans your age. And the painful truth is that most people don't find out until a bone breaks, until they're in the emergency room, until a doctor sits across from them and says the words nobody wants to hear. Your bones look like Swiss cheese on this scan. Stay right here, because in the next few minutes, I'm going to walk you through the specific everyday foods. Foods that look completely normal, foods that are probably in your kitchen right now, that are working against your bones every single day. And I'm going to tell you what to eat instead, and what simple daily habits can actually help your body rebuild what it may have already lost. And before we go any further, if you're new here, welcome. This channel, Dr. Silas Redford Wellness, exists for one reason: to give seniors like you real, honest, research-based health information that your busy doctor might not have time to explain. If that sounds like something you want more of, please hit subscribe and tap the like button. It means the world to this community, and it helps us keep bringing you content that actually matters to your health. Now, let's talk about your bones. Most people think bone loss is just aging, that it happens quietly in the background, there's nothing you can do, and eventually you'll deal with it when you have to. But here's what researchers have been discovering over the last 20 years that doesn't get nearly enough attention. What you eat, specifically certain foods that most Americans eat every single day, can dramatically speed up the process of bone breakdown. Not just slow the building of new bone, actually accelerate the loss of the bone you already have. And that is a very different and much more urgent problem. To understand why, you need to know one simple thing about how your bones work. Your skeleton is not a fixed, permanent structure like the steel frame of a building. It's alive. Every single day, your body is breaking down old bone tissue and building new bone tissue. This process is called remodeling. And in a healthy body, those two things stay roughly balanced. But when your diet tips the scales, when certain foods force your body to pull calcium and other minerals out of your bones to manage what you've eaten, the breakdown starts winning. And after 65, when your body's ability to absorb and hold on to calcium is already declining, this imbalance can become serious very quickly. What doctors rarely explain is just how many common, everyday foods are quietly tipping those scales in the wrong direction. And the most surprising part? Several of them are foods that many seniors actually believe are healthy choices. Let's start with one that's going to surprise a lot of people. Soft drinks, not just the regular sugary ones. Diet sodas too. Here's the problem. Most dark-colored carbonated drinks contain something called phosphoric acid. That's what gives them that sharp, tangy bite. And phosphoric acid, when it enters your bloodstream, creates a chemical situation in your body where calcium gets pulled from your bones to restore balance. Every single time. Researchers who tracked the bone density of older women found that those who drank cola-based sodas regularly had significantly lower bone density in their hips compared to women who didn't drink soda at all. The hip, the most dangerous fracture site for seniors, the one that changes lives overnight. Now, most people hear that and think, okay, easy fix, I'll just cut back on soda. But what happened next shocked researchers. When they dug deeper, they found that the phosphoric acid problem wasn't limited to sodas. It was also showing up from another source, one that most seniors are actually trying to eat more of because they think it's good for them. Processed meat and deli foods, turkey slices, hot dogs, packaged sausage, canned meats. These foods are often loaded with phosphate additives, compounds manufacturers add to extend shelf life and improve texture. And these artificial phosphates are absorbed by the body at a much higher rate than natural phosphorus found in whole foods. When phosphate levels in the blood rise too fast, it sets off the same calcium-pulling mechanism. Your bones pay the price. And if you're a senior who regularly eats deli sandwiches, packaged cold cuts, or processed breakfast meats, which is an enormous portion of the American senior population, this is happening in your body right now. But here's the part that frustrates me most about this whole issue. And I want you to really stay with me here because what I'm about to explain is something that almost never gets mentioned. Salt. Regular table salt. The salt you sprinkle on your eggs, the salt in your canned soup, the salt in your frozen dinner. Sodium, when consumed in excess, forces your kidneys to work harder. And when your kidneys are working overtime to flush out excess sodium, they also excrete more calcium in your urine. More calcium leaving your body. Every high-sodium meal, every salty snack, day after day. The National Osteoporosis Foundation has actually estimated that for every 2,300 milligrams of sodium a person consumes, roughly 40 milligrams of calcium gets flushed out along with it. That might not sound like much, but over weeks and months and years, especially after 65 when your body's ability to replenish calcium has already slowed, it adds up to something very real. And the hardest part? Most seniors have no idea how much sodium they're actually getting. It's not coming from the salt shaker. It's hiding inside bread, canned vegetables, jarred sauces, restaurant meals, and even some cereals. A single can of chicken noodle soup can contain over 800 milligrams of sodium. One serving of certain crackers can hit 400 milligrams. And if you're eating 3 meals a day from packaged or restaurant food, you could easily be at 3,500 milligrams of sodium without ever picking up a salt shaker once. Now I want to talk about something that's going to feel very counterintuitive. And I want you to hear me out completely before you react, because this one genuinely surprises people. Alcohol, even moderate drinking. This one matters deeply for seniors, and it's not talked about enough. Alcohol interferes with the liver's ability to activate vitamin D. And vitamin D, most people know the name, but they don't quite understand why it's critical for bones. Here's the simple version. Even if you're getting calcium in your diet, without activated vitamin D, your intestines literally cannot absorb it. The calcium just passes through. It never reaches your bones. So alcohol isn't just an occasional indulgence. For your skeletal system, it's a direct blocker of the entire bone-building process. And in older adults who already have lower vitamin D activation compared to younger people, even 1 or 2 drinks a day can meaningfully worsen this problem. Think about a man named Richard, 71 years old, retired. He always considered himself healthy. He walked his dog every morning. He took his calcium supplement religiously. He had a glass of wine with dinner most nights because, well, he'd read it was heart healthy. When he fractured his wrist slipping on some ice, his doctor ordered a bone density scan. The results showed he had osteoporosis, severe bone loss. He had no idea. His calcium supplement wasn't working because his vitamin D activation was being suppressed nightly, something he could have changed, something nobody had ever warned him about. Stories like Richard's are far more common than most people realize, and that's exactly why this conversation matters. Now, I promised I would also tell you about some surprising foods in the healthy category that can quietly cause problems. And this one in particular tends to generate a lot of pushback, but the evidence is real. Excessive caffeine, specifically more than 2 or 3 cups of coffee per day. Caffeine slightly increases calcium excretion through the kidneys. On its own, in modest amounts, this is manageable. But many seniors are drinking 4, 5, or even 6 cups of coffee throughout the day. And when you combine that with a diet already high in sodium and low in calcium-rich foods, the cumulative effect becomes meaningful. This isn't about giving up your morning coffee. That's not the message here. The message is that if your overall calcium intake is already low, which it is for the majority of Americans over 65 according to national nutrition surveys, adding high caffeine consumption to the picture makes a difficult situation worse. There's also the issue of high oxalate foods. And before you worry, no, I'm not going to tell you to stop eating vegetables. But there's a nuance here worth understanding. Certain otherwise nutritious foods, spinach, beets, rhubarb, some nuts, contain compounds called oxalates that bind to calcium in the digestive tract and prevent it from being absorbed. So someone who drinks a big spinach smoothie every morning and counts that toward their calcium intake, they may actually be absorbing very little of that calcium. This doesn't make spinach bad. It just means it shouldn't be your primary calcium source. So now the obvious question is, what should you do? And I want to be very clear. This video is not about fear. It's about clarity. Because once you understand the problem, the solution actually becomes fairly straightforward. The foundation is this. If you're over 65, your bones need consistent, reliable support from your diet. Not just calcium, but everything the body needs to actually use that calcium. That means vitamin D, magnesium, vitamin K2, and protein. All 4 work together in a system. Removing or neglecting any one of them weakens the whole chain. For calcium, the most bioavailable natural sources are dairy products like milk and hard cheeses, canned fish with soft bones like sardines and salmon, and fortified plant milks. These are absorbed better and more consistently than supplements for most people. For vitamin D, the honest truth is that food alone rarely provides enough, especially for seniors who spend limited time outdoors. A supplement of at least 800 to 1,000 international units daily is what most bone health experts currently recommend for older adults, but getting your levels tested first is always the smarter move. For magnesium, which many seniors are unknowingly deficient in, pumpkin seeds, almonds, black beans, and whole grains are excellent sources. Magnesium is crucial because it helps regulate how calcium moves in and out of bone tissue. Without enough magnesium, calcium can end up in the wrong places, in soft tissues and blood vessels rather than bones. And for vitamin K2, which is far less well known than K1, the key food sources are fermented products like natto, a Japanese fermented soybean dish, as well as some aged cheeses and egg yolks. K2 acts like a traffic director for calcium, helping guide it into bones and away from arteries. Research out of the Netherlands found that higher K2 intake was associated with stronger bones and lower fracture risk in older women. This is not a fringe supplement. It's a legitimately under-discussed nutrient. Beyond diet, there are two more things worth mentioning that directly affect bone strength in seniors. Weight-bearing exercise, even gentle walking, gentle resistance training, or chair-based exercises sends a signal to your body that your bones are being used and need to stay strong. Your skeleton literally responds to mechanical pressure. Even 20 minutes a day of walking makes a real difference. And getting a bone density scan, a DEXA scan, if you haven't had one recently, is something every person over 65 should discuss with their doctor, especially women, especially those with a family history of fractures, because knowing where you stand right now gives you something to work with. Uncertainty doesn't. I want to say something to you directly, not as information, just person to person. If you've been eating the way you always have, not thinking too much about your bones, maybe assuming that a calcium supplement once a day covers everything, you are not behind. You are not too late. The bone remodeling process I described earlier is happening in your body right now, today, and that means every positive change you make starts having an effect immediately. Your body is not finished with you. It is still working for you every single day, trying to keep you upright and mobile and independent. Your job is simply to stop working against it. The foods I've talked about today, the high phosphate processed meats, the dark sodas, the excess sodium, the alcohol, the over-reliance on high oxalate sources for calcium, these are not permanent judgments. They're just patterns. Patterns can change, and sometimes changing just one or two patterns is enough to shift the balance back in your favor. Think about the woman who swapped her daily diet soda for water with a squeeze of lemon, who started checking sodium on cans before buying, who added a handful of almonds to her afternoon routine and a small piece of cheese to her lunch. Small changes, nothing dramatic. 6 months later, her follow-up bone density scan showed her rate of bone loss had slowed significantly. Her doctor called it meaningful progress. She called it the best news she'd had in years. And it started with one conversation, one piece of information she hadn't heard before. That's why this matters. That's why I keep making these videos. If today's conversation helped you see something about your diet or your bone health in a new way, please share this video with a friend or family member who might need to hear it too, especially anyone over 60 who you care about, a sister, a neighbor, a spouse, because so many people are walking around right now with bones that are quietly losing strength and they have no idea, and a conversation like this one could genuinely change the path they're on. And I'd love to hear from you in the comments below. Have you been told you have low bone density or osteoporosis? Did anything in today's video surprise you? Or maybe there's a topic you'd like me to cover next. Something about your health, your diet, your medications, your daily routine that you've been wondering about. Leave it below. I read every comment, and your questions often become the next video. You're not just a viewer here. You're part of a community of people who believe that aging well is worth paying attention to, and that small steps, taken consistently, really do change outcomes. Thank you for spending your time here. Take good care of those bones, and I'll see you in the next one.